With this particular offseason move, I feel like this would be the worst move or one of the worst moves that the Chicago Bulls have ever made in its franchise history. That's right. I think if the Chicago Bulls hypothetically were even entertaining the possibility of bringing Paul George in, it would be one of the worst moves in franchise history. It certainly would be absolutely up there with one of the most craziest moves. We're going to be talking about the speculation of Paul George possibly signing on with the Chicago Bulls. This is Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we jump into it, guys, I wanted to let you know that 81.8% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with your latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. And without further ado, guys, let's jump into the topic of the day, which is Paul George to the Bulls. All right, guys. And so Paul George to the Bulls, it's not happening. There is no way possible Paul George is coming to the Chicago Bulls. There is so many issues and there's so many problems to go along with this move, guys. And, first, I mean, let's just start here. This is just a piece that appeared up, that you're seeing either across Yahoo Sports or your sports outlets that's saying that Paul George would possibly consider heading to the Chicago Bulls. And the question is does it make sense? And no, it doesn't make sense. And let's start here with the numbers. All right. So look, Paul George, I get it. He has won a lot of awards and he's been in the awards conversations for a lot of different things. I get it. He is a two-way player that is exceptional. But guys, for what we're getting, are you serious? Have you even seen what Paul George has done in the playoffs? Okay, let alone what he does in the playoffs. All right, one of the major things that we have as an issue as Chicago Bulls fans is we can't keep players on the court. Look at the games per played. If you go over here and you look at this, this would absolutely be a disastrous move. And I get it, the 2019-2020 season and all that and what was going on. But look at this, guys. I mean, 54, 31, 56, and he played in 74 games here. And to start off his career, 61, 66. Like, guys, there's not a lot of times that he's even cracked 80 games here. All right. And we're sitting here and we're seriously we're upset about the fact that we're probably in a position to sign DeMar DeRozan, who's made 90% of his games. That's the first problem with this deal. All right. Next up, you're looking at a guy that essentially he's giving you 22 points. He's giving you, right around 3 assists a game and the 5 rebounds a game. Those numbers, honestly speaking, are similar to what Zach Lavine brings you. And Zach Lavine doesn't play the defense like Paul George does, but I mean, essentially you're getting a player that you're going to have to lock up in a terrible contract, guys. And so there is no way possible that this makes sense on those two fronts. Like, you're getting the same type of player back. You're not getting a player that is going to change the course of the franchise, and you're putting yourself in a bad situation as far as the financials are concerned, and the Bulls are already in trouble, guys. To go a little bit more inside the numbers, guys, I mean, look at this. Look at what he's done over his last 5 games in the playoffs against the Dallas Mavericks, okay? Nothing against Luka. Luka's a terrific player. Kyrie's a great player, but guys, playing defense for them is optional. And look at what he did. I mean, he was minus 19, minus 16, minus 5 in a critical game. Guys, I'd much rather have a guy that is going to come to the team and not only show up and be there for the games, but he's going to show up when it really counts. And that's the one thing that I can at least say about DeMar DeRozan is he plays when it counts and he plays big when it counts. He was in the Clutch Player of the Year award. That is not what Paul George is. So this would be ridiculous to even consider this, guys. And I mean, look, Look at what he was able to do in one of the games. He scored 33 and he came back with 7. This is just the type of career that Paul George has literally had since he has left Indiana, or he has become the face of the league somewhat. He has been an up and down player. So this makes absolutely no sense. And we literally would have to gut the roster to get him. I mean, I get it. Like, it would probably be a sign and trade deal. And that means that more than likely you're going to have to go ahead and you're going to have to put Zach Lavine in this deal. But that means that Paul George is going to have to sign off on this deal, and he's going to want to come to Chicago. And honestly speaking, like, he's at home in Los Angeles. Like, he's from California. So what makes sense for him to go to the Chicago Bulls? I mean, look, even if he's tired of Kawhi Leonard, right? He's tired of Kawhi Leonard. He's tired of that situation. Like, dude, he's not any better than Kawhi Leonard in the sense that he's injured too. He's injured too. And much like the Clippers franchise, he doesn't show up when it is critical to show up in playoff times. And honestly speaking, guys, I wouldn't want Paul George, because I think that Paul George might go down as being attached to one of the players that is going to be attached to probably one of the most lopsided trades in NBA history. And what do I mean by that? He forced his way out of OKC, got the Clippers to give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all he's probably going to do is become the league MVP, and OKC is on the rise and they're building every day, whereas the Clippers, they look like they're a franchise that eventually is going to have to tear it down, much like we are. So absolutely not, man. I have got to roast this idea. This is literally the most craziest thing that I've seen. Like, the suggestion that we would go after Paul George is like, no, we do not want Paul George under any circumstances. And guys, if we have to get Paul George, not only are we going to have to do a sign and trade, we're probably going to have to give up some of our young assets. And I mean, that means that Kobe White's on the table. That also means that Desumu's on the table, which, I mean, they might be on the table anyway if we're going into a full rebuild. But for Paul George, really? I mean, on top of that, we're literally, I mean, Zach Lavine, I get it. Like, you can have Zach Lavine, but I don't want Paul George under any circumstances here, guys. And this is another young asset that we would have to give up on, and that's going to be Patrick Williams, right? And we're already going to have a tough decision with that. And Patrick Williams still could become, guys, and I don't want to be attached to another Paul George deal that sees a young player go off and become a great player somewhere else, all right? And I think that we've seen that movie too many times, whether it's been players like Laurel Markkanen who have moved on, Bobby Portis has moved on, Wendell Carter Jr., I mean, that's still up in the air, but he's still been pretty successful. I'm sure we would love to have that productivity. Even Chris Dunn, he's even had a productive career after he's left us, man. So there's no way that this is happening, guys. If you stuck around this long in the video, kudos to you. This is my rant for the day. There's no way that this is happening, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you really want Paul George over on the Chicago Bulls? And let me ask you something. If we get Paul George, do you honestly think that we would be more than a first round out with Paul George? Like, let me know. I get the East is easier, but what other moves would you make aside from Paul George? Once again, this is your host, Rico Greenhowe. This is Bulls Digest. And even though this is just Yahtzee, and I don't know what we're going to do this offseason, it's not looking good, I'm still saying go Bulls. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.